Nearly 2 weeks into the war, the Ukrainian president is rallying his people in the face of increasingly dire threats. As Russian forces continue to raze his nation, Vladimir Zelensky delivered an early morning address from a secret location, describing Ukraine as a superpower of spirit. Vladimir Putin vowing to eliminate Ukraine, calling Western sanctions a declaration of war, warning the West that imposing a no-fly zone, a Zelensky plea rejected by President Biden, would trigger a wider war. It is already the most dangerous battle in Europe since World War II. Ukrainian cities under siege, more than 1 million refugees on the move, the capital Kyiv surrounded by Russian forces. Our senior foreign correspondent Ian Pannell is on the scene. Good morning, Ian.
Yeah, good morning, George. We've just returned from the town of Irpin. This is about 50 miles northwest of the capital, where Russian forces are shelling and killing civilians who are trying to flee. And we're seeing hundreds of thousands of people across the country who've now become targets as Putin's objectives and tactics in this war became ever clearer this week. This was the week when it became clear that Putin's war would be longer, harder and more costly than the Kremlin may have ever imagined. What had been unthinkable 10 days ago is now happening daily, as seen in videos posted to social media by people throughout the country. Russia is pounding cities across Ukraine as its forces slowly occupy ever more territory. With the fall of Kherson in the south, 5 major cities are now being gradually encircled. And the Russians switching tactics. If the first phase was largely military targets, this week saw shelling of civilian sites, including residential buildings, using heavy artillery and missile strikes indiscriminately. Homes levelled, government buildings shelled, oil depots hit, a TV tower struck, and schools razed to the ground. Even Europe's largest nuclear power plant being caught in the battle. And in much of the country, the wail of air raid sirens has become ubiquitous, as many Ukrainians eke out a subterranean existence.
These air raids are going off around the city every half an hour or so. We're just heading down into a metro station where a lot of residents are now living and spending the night.
Russia's thought to have hoped that its shock and awe attack in the first days of the invasion would lead to a quick capitulation. The opposite has happened. Putin's forces have met ferocious Ukrainian resistance, inflicting painful casualties on the Russians, who now admit to a rising number of war dead. Columns of Russian armour have been destroyed. Others simply abandoned, short of fuel and supplies. And in a sign of the slow pace of their advance, a huge Russian convoy that was bearing down on Kyiv last Sunday has barely moved since. And President Zelensky, perhaps more defiant than ever, formally applying to join the European Union and telling me at a press conference a few days ago that he'll do whatever it takes to protect his people.
For how long can you hang on?
I don't know how long, he told me. It doesn't depend on time. It depends on us. Posting videos from central Kyiv, Zelensky dressed in combat fatigues, addressing his people in an effort to show strength and reassurance. But Zelensky's angry that he won't get the no-fly zone he wants from NATO, adding, all the people who die from this day onwards will die because of you, because of your weakness. Amid the sounds of war, Russia and Ukraine have held 2 rounds of ceasefire talks in Belarus this week. Russia agreeing to humanitarian corridors for 2 cities that it violated almost immediately. But in Moscow, Putin insisting that everything is still going to plan, despite evidence to the contrary. Almost overnight, the country's become a pariah state, major international companies divesting, and the US going after Putin's supporters and some of Russia's richest men, sanctioning 19 oligarchs and 47 of their closest associates and family members. The Kremlin's response has been to plunge ever deeper into tyranny. In the past week, authorities have moved to try to snuff out what was left of Russia's free media, imposing full military censorship, blocking Facebook, Twitter and the BBC's Russian service. But this is a dangerous moment. Without a face-saving off-ramp, Putin may not be able to turn back, and anything less than victory in Ukraine could threaten his own position. And with more people on the move and Russian tanks advancing, this crisis, this war, looks almost guaranteed to get even worse.
George, I've seen this playbook firsthand in Syria, in the city of Aleppo, where Putin's forces unleashed this mass bombardment of civilian areas to drive out the population before land forces then move in to try and seize control. I think the biggest difference here, though, is the size and strength of the resistance. President Zelensky speaking again just over an hour ago, again asking for a no-fly zone, and if that can't be provided, asking for fighter jets. It still feels, though, like we're in the very early stages of this war. George?
It is brutal, and we're going to bring those questions to the UN ambassador in just a moment. But right now, let's bring in our military analyst, retired Colonel Stephen Gannon. Picking up on what Ian just said there, Steve, this is not the war Putin bargained for.
It certainly isn't, George. Some of the things that we're looking at is the gross incompetence of the Russian military. The third largest military certainly is not performing that way. But the Ukrainian military is really what the real surprise is here. The way that they've been able to improvise, the way that they've been able to trade space for time. They're focusing their defenses around the key cities of Kharkiv and Kyiv and Kharkiv. But right now, all the Russian movement is down south, where the Ukrainians aren't focusing their defenses.
So does this enhance the prospects for a negotiated peace, or have we crossed that Rubicon?
I think at this point it's going to have to be a negotiated peace, George. The Russians cannot achieve their political goal. Putin cannot achieve his political goal. One military analyst is saying that within 3 weeks the Russian military will be exhausted. The economy might not be much better, but the way that this battlefield looks right now, Mr. Putin cannot accept this. He cannot look for a settlement here because this map is a humiliation.
And you're saying he doesn't have the means for a long-term occupation?
He doesn't have the troops. He would have to probably double or triple the number of troops that he has in Ukraine right now. But we think that what will eventually happen is that the settlement will occur, and he will have to negotiate some kind of face-saving agreement.
Steve Gannard, thanks very much. Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.